Hey, welcome back everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a camera that for all intents and purposes for the landscape shooter hasn't changed in 6 years and is still a great deal to this day if you buy it used. You have to. They don't make it anymore. The Nikon Z7. If you buy the newer Z7 II, you can still get that new and it can be had used for around $2K, which is also a great deal. These cameras can't be beat by any camera on the market for landscape work, bang for your buck, and the image quality is pretty much unmatched by anything until you hit the medium format realm. Of course, I'm sure there will be arguments against all of this, but this is how I see the facts. Anyway, let's go watch a location video that I made where I took a nice drive down the coast in a snowstorm, looking for nautical lobsterman photographic subjects, and I just ended up having a fabulous time. Welcome back everyone. I'm out in a little bit of a snowstorm. We're heading down the coast to a town named Bremen, and we're gonna see what's around there. We're gonna see if we can find some cool, like nautical lobsterman kind of stuff to shoot. I don't know. We'll see what we can find in the snow. Should be pretty interesting. And I'm going to be shooting the Z7, and this video is going to be attached to a video about the Z7 and why it's still one of the best landscape cameras on the planet. And if you have one, then you're pretty darn lucky. This goes for the Z7 II as well, by the way. So what I find is one of the best ways to go out and make photographs is to just get in the car and go. Today I have zero plans, and it could turn out to be good and it could turn out to be bad, but I love going out and exploring and trying to figure out if there's anything that I want to photograph in the area that I'm driving to. So I'm heading to a town called Bremen, like I said, and I've been there a bunch of times, but I don't know what it looks like in the snow, and I also don't know what kind of interesting things there are really there. I've never spent a whole lot of time there. There's a bunch of towns near, like Round Pond and places like that, and they have wonderful waterfronts, so I'm hoping that we can find the idyllic little waterfront with hopefully some colorful houses around it, and yeah, maybe that'll be the cool place to go make a photograph. Oh, well, I found this wharf back here that's covered in traps, lobster traps. So I'm gonna go set up and see if we can get a photograph of it, because I think it's interesting. It's like a big sort of like almost largest commercial wharf filled with lobster traps, but with nothing really sitting around it, which I think is really kind of interesting looking. It may work, may not, but it'll be the first shot of the day, and yeah, let's go give it a shot. It was always on fire, our house, our dreams. We were dancing on a wire, reckless it seemed. Man, it is beautiful out here. I've only driven through this town before, so it's nice to stop. It is really pretty here, especially with the snow coming down like it is. All right. Boy, this time of year, hanging your bag off of your tripod is like a hot ticket, man. It's good stuff. So I'm going to set this up to be a water heavy shot, maybe. It's tough because there are houses stacked well above what I want to make the photograph of, but not so far that it isn't going to be a little bit of a chore to try to work around it. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to work. All right, so Nikon Z7, man. You know, I've never done a review on this camera, and I've had this one since 2018. So August of 18, is that when it came out? I got it just when they came out, and I put in a pre-order And I managed to be one of the first people to get them, but I never reviewed it because I wasn't really doing my YouTube channel at that point like I am now. So anyway, so I'm gonna get this set up, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why I like my Z7 still. Almost 6 years later, I still don't feel compelled to replace it. Well, it's the first shot, and as I always say, the first shot's the most important shot of the day. So I guess here it goes. All right, so I've decided to set up another shot. That first one I don't really like anymore. We all know what that feels like. I'm going to set up another one because I do actually like what's going on in this shot quite a lot. So, all right, so in this shot, I've got what looks to be a point. It's not, it's actually the edge of the water because the exit from the bay here is this way. But it's a multi-layered image. So you're gonna have trees. Well, first you're gonna have a wharf, trees, and then another wharf, and then more trees in the very background. So it makes like a multi-layered image, which I really like. And it all points to the left, and the wharfs themselves are pretty interesting. So I can't hate on those. And well, okay, so the initial shot may not have been the one I wanted, but this next one turns out to be, I think, a pretty nice shot. So I'm gonna get packed up and move on. The snow's coming down at a pretty good rate because they said it was gonna be sunny all afternoon and snow would stop and it was just gonna rain and it was gonna get warm. Well, it's still 25 degrees. It's snowing pretty heavily, completely cloudy, and it's given us an opportunity to make really, like, in my opinion, interesting photos. So gonna get packed up, we're gonna move on, and yeah, see what we can find. One of the things I love the most about Maine in the wintertime is how empty it is. All these spaces are so much more packed with people in the on season, but the wintertime up here is really just astoundingly good. Yeah, I can't get enough of it. I get out and I wander around. There's just nobody around, or not many people. And I just absolutely love that. It makes it such a wonderful experience. That was a pretty nice little place to shoot. And I ended up talking with a gentleman named Ham Martin who wrote a book called Talk Radio. He was an interesting guy. And his biggest message to the world is we need to love each other and stop worrying about our differences. I totally agree with that. Anyway, I've just come upon this nifty abandoned house here, and I'm going to see if I can find a composition that works. I hope I'm parked in a place that's safe to park. And yeah, I'll get back with you. So I forgot to bring an extra tripod today, so I'm having to hold this thing a lot. Anyway, so I've set up my shot as follows. It's real basic, straightforward, and I really like this house. I feel like it's almost has an Andrew Wyeth feel about it. So I saw that, and the second I saw it, I knew I had to stop and get it. Anyway, so your main subject matter here, and has vanishing lines, or vanishing point lines that go off down the road, so your eye follows the house over, and then goes down to the left down the road. And yes, I'm going to Photoshop out the slow children sign. I think the power lines here and here lend some cohesiveness to the overall composition. Anyway, let me take this shot. I think we got it. I think there's definitely something to taking photographs of old abandoned places before they're gone. I think it's a noble pursuit. That house is beautiful. However, I think that house isn't fully gone. I think somebody's going to save it. I mean, Maine has some of the oldest architecture in the country. That house is at least 200 years old. I'm thinking somebody will fix it. It always happens that way. I appear to have water on my lens. I can get that off. There we go. All right, let's move on some, see what we can find. I love this driving around in this kind of weather. The snow's let up for now, which means it's probably going to start raining before too long. So I may want to limit myself to one more photograph. Something I think you'll find is interesting. My videos, my location videos, are usually 3 photos long, because that's 2.5 to 3 hours, sometimes more, of working, and sometimes I make shots that I never even use, and I think that's important to remember, because not everything you make is a banger. That's just the bottom line. So shooting this Z7, sure, it was the first generation for Nikon, which means it was basically a second generation mirrorless camera, second developed generation mirrorless camera. And as the years have gone by, Nikon has put out cameras with better autofocus and better, oh God, you name it, better processing, faster, more, usability features. But to this day, the Z7 is still the sensor in the Z7 is still the highest quality imaging sensor in a full frame camera. It still gets, I believe, the highest rating on DxO, and it basically is as good of image quality. I mean, it's like right there with medium format Fuji and the like. And we're talking about a 6-year-old camera here. It came out in 2018. In August of this year, so it's 5.5-year-old camera almost. It's still top of the heap in image quality. Usability is fine. I'm not bothered by not having some of the lightning fast, ultra low light autofocus. I still shoot birds with it. I still shoot wildlife with it. Well, I used to. I haven't done a lot of that lately. But I moved to a place where I'm not even sure where to go do that. We're gonna do a video on wildlife shooting up here soon. Because I'm gonna run a review on my 100 to 400. I've been promising that review for over a year now. And so I can at least do also a long term on it which is nice because that is a wonderful lens. Back to the subject at hand, the Nikon Z7 is just a fantastic camera, and if you can find it used, it's a bargain of the century for a landscape camera, because there's nothing better. I mean, until you get up to medium format and you go to the 100 megapixel cameras, and even those, you're looking at pixel pitch here. It's apples to apples, though you have the resolution and a little bit of better color fidelity in the medium format cameras. Your Nikon Z7, Z7 II, and hopefully, I hope they're not going to go to a 60 megapixel sensor in the Z7 III, because with the 60 megapixel sensor comes a loss of dynamic range, and I'm very much not interested in losing the dynamic range of the camera. It's one of the reasons I love this camera so much. So anyway, let's try to find a third image, and I will bring you back in then. Well, I just decided I'm going to stop one last quick time to make one more photograph of this crazy house that I drove by earlier. All this stuff looks great in the snow, so I'm not going to take you out with me though. So. Well, that was a nice surprise, wasn't it? I didn't think I'd get a third location today, but that house, man, I had to stop. So now I'm trying to get home in time to avoid the sliding. I have to stop and get gas, and then I can get on home. So I'm keeping it in four-wheel drive, which is burning gas like crazy, but you know, it is what it is. It is a mess out here, so I'm going to concentrate on driving. And again, I want to thank you guys for coming out, and if you found this useful, hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe. I need both of those things to keep the channel alive, and yeah, I hope to see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Man, that was such a fantastic time. I love heading out and just driving until something catches my attention. It just can't be beat as a way of approaching it. So, as for the Z7, I think you'll agree it's just a fantastic overall camera. For landscape work, there really isn't much better in the Nikon lineup, and truthfully, even though it's a little bit of a chore to use it for bird photography, it's quite capable of that as well, if you're an astute shooter. Let me cover some of the pros and cons of this camera and tell you what I think regarding why you should or shouldn't get this camera. First off, let's get to the pros, because we know I like doing the pros first, and the pros are, you know, really why you would buy the camera. The cons, as long as they don't outweigh the pros, will be the thing that you basically ignore if the pros are good enough. Anyway, image quality. It's top notch. There really isn't anything out there that outdoes it until you go to medium format. And sure, there's the 60 megapixel cameras that Sony makes, and hopefully Nikon will be making. But you definitely lose dynamic range, and you gain noise in the low light and in the shadows, because it can't put out as high a dynamic range as the 45.6 megapixel sensor. Even a 50 megapixel sensor on medium format comes out pretty much neck and neck with this sensor. It's only a little bit better, and where you really run into things getting better is the lenses. The Nikon lenses allow you to go from at extremely high quality 14 to 400 in your landscape bag. On medium format, you simply can't reach those ranges. And if you did figure out a way to adapt lenses and get the ones that could take you that far in both directions, you'd be carrying a bag full of heavy, heavy glass. If you want 100 megapixels, then you could also go that route. And your quality goes up, of course, but your signal-to-noise ratio also goes up. So you end up with the same problems you have going up to 60 megapixels on a 45.6 megapixel sensor. I mean, from like comparing the two. And once again, because of the lenses, Nikon really pulls away and wins in the race. So I was going to make an argument that as far as 100 megapixels goes, sure, 100 megapixels is twice the pixels, but it's not, 2 times as long and 2 times as long. That'd be 4 times larger. 2 times larger is only a strip, and it may or may not make a huge difference in your overall image quality, because it does allow you to print bigger, but how much bigger may be completely unimportant. Even if you're printing 4-foot prints, a 45.6 megapixel sensor puts out plenty of data. It really is the signal to noise ratio that has to do with the noise and has to do with the dynamic range of the sensor. Those 3 things, and really signal to noise affects both the noise of the sensor and the dynamic range of the sensor. So let's just say the DR, the dynamic range. The dynamic range, the higher you go up in megapixels, the lower your dynamic range gets, because your pixels are smaller and smaller and smaller, and they can't pick up as much light. So you have higher quality pixels when you put fewer onto the same given area on a sensor. So 100 megapixel sensor that Fuji is using, that Hasselblad is using, yes, they're great sensors, but I don't think their dynamic range matches their 50 megapixel sensor. I could be wrong. I don't own either. I haven't even had a chance to play with either, and I would love to, but frankly, it's so freaking expensive. And like I said, for a landscape shooter, having those lenses, really, you're limited, which could be a good thing. I mean, remember, I shoot film as well, and by that, I'm limited to 3 focal ranges frequently, or 4, depending on what I want to carry. So, focal lengths, not even ranges. So, I'll carry a wide-ish, a wide, a long-ish, and a longer, and that's 4 lenses. So, that's in medium format. In large format, it gets even narrower range. So, the second thing I want to talk about is size. You just can't beat the compact nature of this camera. Of course, I have a grip on it, and this grip actually makes it almost as large as the Z8, but still it's lighter. So it gives me a little bit extra grip because I have huge hands, but the compact nature of this body is just unmatched. And some are going to say Sony's even smaller body. Yes, but it's too small. In fact, people with big fingers like me get their fingers, have tight finger area here between the lens and the grip. It's not the best. I haven't played with the newest Sonys, and they may have dealt with that, but this is just this is like the Goldilocks size. And it's really a Goldilocks camera. It's not the fastest. It's not the highest resolution, but it sits so perfectly at a point where you have resolution, you have dynamic range, you have lens availability, and you have size. It's nice and small. You're not carrying around massive glass. You're not having to, it's Goldilocks. It is the Goldilocks camera. All right, price. It's way cheaper than the Z8 or Z9, and if you don't need that insane speed, which most people do not, though the camera companies want them to think they do, it's a huge discount buying a Z7 over the rest. Like new condition on MPB right now is $1,300. You could buy 4 of these, three of these for the price of a Z8. But you wouldn't want to, but you get my point. All right, ergonomics. The Nikon ergonomics are really unmatched in my opinion. The grip is it's built just right for your hand. So big guys like me have room to use it. Small people, it doesn't feel too awfully big, and it gives you plenty to grip onto. So if you want to put a huge lens on here, you can. And if you put a grip on the bottom or just a bracket like I have, that makes holding a big lens even easier. I used to have the 200 to 500, and that was a beast. That was a big lens, and I never really had any problems at all. Now I'm shooting the 100 to 400, which we're going to have a review of very, very soon. And that sits on here perfectly. It's the perfect grip for holding bigger lenses, but it's also the perfect grip, like as far as gripped cameras go. Now, I know I talk about how much I like the grip on the ZF, as long as you have the small rig grip on it. I'll actually say the same thing about this. I like to have this small rig extension on here. It's an L bracket, of course, so you can mount the camera this way on your tripod. But I like to have the extension because it gives my pinky some place to hang out. Whereas this body alone, my pinky's still on the camera. See, it's still on there. I mean, you can probably see that it's still on there, but it's not nearly as comfy as holding it like this. So, let's see. The button layout's good. I like the flip out screen. Yes, that is actually one of those brother printer prints. I put pull. You'll see in the videos pull, pull, and pull and pull, just to make it look good. But I have it bent out like this, and it's stuck to the back, and it gives me the ability to just grab it even when I have gloves. So, because trying to get my fingers under this thing is a nightmare. That's why I did that. And Morton Hilmer is the reason. I saw him. He had put a piece of tape on his, and I thought it was a great idea. All right. Let's see. Oh, and ergonomics also weight-wise. It's much lighter than the Z8. So even if you have this grip on it, I think I may have said this earlier, but even if you have this grip on it, it's still much lighter than the Z8. Right. The next thing. Oh, right. Hey, this is one I should have said earlier. The extremely low noise coming from the sensor. This is another area where the older non-stacked tech delivers. The high ISO is quite a bit less than even on the Z8 and the Z9. So if you're shooting astro, that's a plus. You have an extra 400 ISO to play with. Granted, it's close, so I don't think there's a huge loss of anything in image quality wise on the Z8. But I will actually have one here in 2 weeks, and I'm going to do a full run on that for about 2 weeks. And put out a whole series of videos on what I think of the Z8 and how I use it in my day-to-day landscape shooting and photography in general. Maybe I'll get converted over to that platform. However, I really want to see what they're going to do for a Z7 III. I'm hoping, unless somebody comes out with a higher quality 60 megapixel sensor, I'm hoping they stick down around 45, 50 megapixels, but we'll see. All right, cons. It's not the fastest camera around. I will be the first to admit that. It's not slow, but it's not fast. It's an in-between camera, and it's still a hell of a lot faster than any of the DSLRs that existed at the time. Maybe the D850 was a little bit faster, and of course the sport camera, the D6 or whatever it was faster speed-wise, autofocus and everything. But overall, this is a good middle-of-the-road speed. It's not super slow, it's not super fast. It's completely usable in most situations, and even in high-speed situations, it can be fine if you're a competent, excellent photographer that doesn't rely on spray and pray shooting. I know spray and pray is a huge thing for people just learning, and they're hoping they're going to get the shot. But look, all you have to do is look back at some of Morton Homer's older videos. He was shooting with a Z7 and captured some of the most intimate moments that were really just fantastic. And he was using a Z7. Morton Homer's never been a spray and pray photographer. If you watch him, you'll see. And most wildlife photographers, the major ones that publish and are really well known, are not spray and pray photographers. They're photographers who pay very close attention to what they're seeing, and then they get it. And they might blast out two or three frames. And many of them, including Morton Homer, used to use nothing but manual focus. They didn't even use the autofocus we're dealing with today. Of course, the autofocus is nice. Watch Morton Homer now, and he's shooting a Z9 and a Z8, and he's getting insane sharp, insane hit rates. The sharpness is just unreal. Anyway, so what I was going to say is, but if you're shooting wildlife with a Z7 like Morton Homer, and you're going to compare Morton Homer with a Z7 to a beginner with a Z9, the Morton Homer shots are always going to be better. He's going to have a higher hit rate even than a beginner with a Z9 because he just knows what the hell he's doing. Anyway, so he shot, like I said, he shot with a Z6 and Z7 for a long time, won many awards with that work. It's patience and skill, not the tech in your hand, contrary to what the camera companies want you to think. All right, next one. The single card slot. I don't really have a huge problem with this, but this really bugs the heck out of everyone. These XQD cards are so reliable. Knock wood, I've never had one fail, and I've been using all of my XQDs since the day I bought this camera, and that's almost 6 years ago. I do have newer ones, but all of them in rotation. I do have them marked with the date I got them, etc. But anyway, I'm not bothered by the lack of a dual card slot, but that really bugs the heck out of some people. So, the next thing I really don't like is this door. This is stupid. This is stupid. I mean, can I say it again? This is just stupid. It's been dealt with in newer cameras, but it's dumb. I knock this thing open all the time. I know people that just tape it shut, but all you have to do is bang it by something and boom, it's open. You just go, boom, it's open. It's like the stupidest design. But, you know, I guess they figured you were going to keep your thumb there, so you weren't going to let that thing get knocked open. But when it's sitting on a tripod and you hit it and it accidentally pops open, you know. So, stupid card slot door. I have it actually listed on my notes as stupid card slot door. Yeah, anyway, I knock this thing open all the time. Let's see. One thing that the Z7 bothers me on the Z7 versus the Z7 II is the inability to remove all the data from the back screen when you're shooting. On the Z7 II, you just hit the record button, or you can assign this to other buttons, I think, too. But it clears all the data off, so you just have what you're looking at and your focus point. And I think that's fantastic. I never understood why they made it so you had all this data on the screen. And even on the D850, I believe in live view, you could clear all the data off the screen and just have what was being seen by the sensor, which is like, okay, so why on earth didn't they do that with the Z7? But you'd think they would fix that. Like, that has to be a firmware thing, right? I don't know. Anyway, and the last thing, I see most of these are nitpicks. They're like, oh, it's just older technology, so it's not quite as good. You know, they developed better ways of doing things like that. But I don't know why they didn't put a lock on it, is really what I'm getting at. Anyway, digress. Last thing is not as customizable as newer Nikons. So you're given some ability to customize your buttons, but it's not nearly as good as the new cameras at said customization. But that's once again something they fixed. All right. Man, that's everything. Oh, and I'm sure some of you are going to wonder about this, and I'm going to get questions about it because people don't watch the video all the way through. And I get that. I ramble. But this is a K&F Concepts magnetic filter system. I'm going to be doing a full review on this. This was the replacement because, as you saw in a video a few videos ago, this went over and smashed into a rock lens first. Yeah, this is the system that saved my lens, the UV. That's magnetic, so you can actually stick stuff right to the UV. You don't have to take the UV off and put another adapter on, which is really kind of nice. So I'm going to do a review on these, and look out for that. I'm also going to do a review on a K&F tripod that's coming my way as well. So, all right. Hey, I want to thank you guys for coming out today. I know I rambled. I always ramble. I hope I'm giving you some useful information, though. And if I am, I want to beg you to please do the thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel. Subscriptions keep the channel alive, and the thumbs up helps get it placed in the algorithm. Both actually help it get placed in the algorithm, but the subscription keeps the channel alive. So it keeps YouTube noticing that I'm here. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming out. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.